Good morning, girls. Today we are going to start a new topic called exceptions and exception handling. So, before learning what exceptions are, first we will see what errors are. So, these exceptions are nothing but a kind of error. Exceptions nothing but a kind of error. So, what are errors? Errors are in general are nothing but the mistakes we do. Mistakes we do. So, while we write a program, there is uh, a lot of chance or 95% chance that we write a program with an error. Most of the times we write some or the other. It can be a spelling mistake, it can be or logical error, or it can be a I mean syntactical error, whatever it might be. So these errors can be actually troubling to us. Why? Because see, the error may produce incorrect output or may terminate the execution of the program abruptly and even cause the system to crash. So why we have to take care about errors is, uh, first thing, they produce incorrect output. That is the wrong output. Okay, let's keep it aside. Even if it is incorrect output, it is producing some other output. We will handle it. When we look at the output, we can know that it is incorrect, and again we will try to rectify and run the program again. But uh, it may terminate the program abruptly. Okay, this one can also be kept aside. Like it causes the program to end suddenly. I mean, if it is executing some 10th line and it finds error in 10th line, it will not execute the rest of the program. Like we can take some other 10 lines or some 15 lines, 20 lines, 100 lines, whatever the length of the program might be. Where an error is found, it will stop executing there and it will end the program. Uh, so it causes some kind of um, problem to us. And finally, it may cause even the system to crash. So this is what we don't want to happen. Don't like it to happen. Why? Because if the system crashes, if you don't save the program, or if there are other other things running by side, like other programs or other things which are happening on the side and running in the background. So all these will be ended abruptly, which may cause the loss of the data. And sometimes, if the system crashes, it may be not possible to recover. So to avoid all these three conditions, like to avoid incorrect output, to avoid termination of the program abruptly, and also to avoid the crash in the system, we have to handle these errors. So it is therefore important to detect and manage properly all the possible error conditions in the program so the program will not terminate or crash during execution. So the two things that you have to do here are detect and manage. So you have to find out where actually or which part of the program is causing an error, or which line of the program is causing an error. So you have to detect it, and then you have to, if you can solve it, if you can, okay, you solve it, or if you can't solve it, you have to manage it so that the program is not terminated. It will continue with the flow of the execution and the system doesn't crash. So you have to detect and manage these errors. So we will classify these errors into two types. They are compile time errors and runtime errors. So compile time errors, the name itself is suggesting you something. So compile time. So when you write the program and compile the program, there itself it shows the error. Oh, Java compiler. So, see, all syntactical errors will be detected and displayed by the Java compiler, and therefore these errors are known as compile time errors. Why? One reason they got the name compile time error is because while compiling the program, you will detect the errors, and they are done by the Java compiler. So also they are called compile time errors. So whenever the compile time error compiler displays an error, it will not create the .class file. So this is the main file that is needed for the execution of the program, right? So this error, compile time error, will not allow the compiler to uh, create a .class file. So it is necessary to fix all the errors to successfully compile and run the program. So how do we fix this? So see here, this simple compile time error. Example for a simple compile time error is, in this line you are missing a semicolon. So we all know that every statement in Java except class declarations and method declarations, um, every statement in Java has to end with a semicolon. But here it is not ending with a semicolon. You have missed it. So it will show you a compile time error. So uh, most of the help comes from the compiler when you are running the program. I mean, when you are compiling the program. So the first job that compiler does, okay, it helps us a lot by telling us where the errors are in the program. So it will tell in which line, which place, which statement you are finding an error. So it is, see here, it is telling you in line 7 there is an error, and that too, which error? Semicolon is missing. So it's saying semicolon is expected. So this is how the compiler will prompt you, will help you to find where the error is, and you can correct it and again recompile the program and run the program. And one more thing you have to keep in mind is a single error, missing a semicolon. I mean, um, um, the semicolon can cause, see, a single error may be the cause for source of multiple errors later in the compilation. So you have to be very much careful. See, if you rectify one single error, all the errors will go up. And if you put one error out there, it can result in a sequence or a series of errors. It will show you a list of errors only because of one single error. So this is what you have to keep in mind. Always don't think that if you have 10 errors, all 10 errors have to be rectified. If these 10 errors are caused by one single error, now other 9 errors are caused by one single error. If you rectify that error, these 10 errors will also be uh, rectified. So this is how your um, compile time errors are to be uh, looked in. Okay, and example for error sequence or multiple errors are undefined variables. So if you write an undefined variable, or if you're trying to use a variable which is not defined earlier, so it will cause a series of errors. So this is an example for your series of errors. So most of the compile time errors, what are they? Are due to typing mistakes. Mostly they are due to typing mistakes. They can be like you will miss the semicolons and opening and closing braces, spelling mistakes in the identifiers and keywords, double quotes. One, you will open a double quotes and will forget to close it, or you will you will forget to open and you will try to close it for the strings. And use of undeclared variables, and also what you say, assigning uncompatible or incompatible values into their variables, bad references to objects. I mean, you're not referring the object properly, or like spelling mistake. The best spelling mistake is, see, always it is rule that the class name should start with a capital letter. But most of the time you forget to write or start the class name with a capital letter. So automatically gives rise to an error. So these all are the uh, things which can cause compile time errors in your program. So what we will do next, the other type of error is runtime error. So this is the most important error, type of error which has to be handled, because compile time errors are shown by compiler and we can read, they are shown before they go to execution. I mean, the dot plus file is not created. So before, I mean, the system won't crash, or the system, the program will won't end abruptly. So you can rectify the errors before the execution of the program itself. So the compile time errors are a little easy to handle. But what these runtime errors are? See, a program may compile successfully, creating the class file, but may not run properly. Okay, so even though the class file is created, the program may not run properly, or it produces wrong results due to wrong logic, or say a wrong logic. I mean, if you're trying to divide something by zero, or if you're trying to store or access a array variable which is beyond the size of the array, or stack overflow, because uh, stack is a limited size data structure. So unless and until it is implemented with linked list and other kind of data structures. So stack overflow error, all these errors may cause the runtime errors. So some common runtime errors that we come across are dividing an integer by zero. So mathematically we know that dividing an integer by zero will result in what? Infinity. So it is not possible to divide an integer by 0, so it will cause a runtime error. Next, accessing an element that is out of bounds of an array. So if you declare an array of size 5, and if you are trying to access the element 6 of the array, does it exist? No, but still you are trying to access it in your program, so it shows runtime error. Next, trying to store a value in an array of an incompatible class or type. So you are trying to store a integer, or you're trying to store a string value and onto an integer type, or like that. Trying to cast an instance of a class to one of its subclasses. So you are trying to create an instance of a class to its or you are trying to access one of its subclasses to the instance of the main class. So I mean to instance of the original class, the parent class. So it may cause an error, and passing a parameter does not for valid range or value for a method. So when you're passing the parameter, if you pass the values which are not um, in the range, or the value which is they have assigned, like the return type of the method is not matching, so that will also cause an error. So trying to illegally change the state of a thread. So what is the state of a thread? This will be dealt in detail when you are reading about multi-threading. So a thread is a small program, so it will have some states like run, start, sleep, running, runnable, wait, suspend. So wait is a state, run is a state. So when you are trying to change the state illegally, that will also cause runtime errors. Attempting to use negative size of an array is not allowed. Next, using a null object reference as a legitimate object reference to access a method or a variable. So you're trying to use a reference which is not possible, which is null, through which you're trying to access method or a variable. So it is not possible. It will give rise to a runtime error. Next, converting invalid string to a number. So we are trying to convert invalid string to a number. I mean, the conversion is not possible. Then it will show a runtime error. Next, for accessing a character, again, to try to fetch a character which is not in the size of the string. That will also like it is similar to an error of an array. So this is all about your runtime errors. Not all about your errors. This is what runtime errors are. Though the dot class file is created, It will not, the program will not run properly to the wrong the logic, or due to some errors like stack overflow, or some other errors. Next, when such errors are encountered, Java typically generates an error message and aborts the program. So when these kind of errors uh, arise, so it will show you an error. See here, for example, here you're trying to divide by a 0. So it is not possible to divide by 0. So it is some in the fifth line, seventh line of the program. So it will show, sorry, it's 10th line of the program. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So it is showing an error in the 10th line of the program. Even the spaces are considered as lines. So it is showing in the 10th line of the error. What type of error it is displaying? Java.lang.arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception. Why? Because you are trying to divide a number by 0. See, you are not intentionally doing it. Here the logic is written wrong. How it is wrong? Because you have assigned A as 10, B as 5, and C as 5. So A is 10, B minus C is 0, 5 minus 5 is 0. So we are trying to divide 10 by 0. So automatically an error, a runtime error arises here, and this is what causing the problem, which is called arithmetic exception. Okay, but see here, after this, I mean, it is showing not showing any output. I mean, these three lines which are after the what you say, after this line, the line which is causing the runtime error are not executed. So this is what we have to handle. So if you handle this error through exception handling, that is what we are going to learn in the next classes. If you try to handle this through exception handling, what happens is, even though error occurs at this line, the other lines which are after the error causing line, those will be executed and the output can be displayed. So this is what we want to do in exception handling. See, the Java runtime tries to execute a division by 0. So it generates an error condition which causes the program to start after displaying an appropriate message. So this is what it is trying to say, that it is an arithmetic exception. You're trying to divide by 0 and it is caused in line number 10. So this much detail is very much useful to us to rectify where the error is. So in the next class, we will start, we'll see what the definition of exceptions and how to handle these exceptions, and what are the different steps involved in handling these exceptions and types of exceptions, all these. If you have any doubt, ping me in the group.